The freezing morning air sliced through the parking lot of Dalton and Pierce Enterprises as sleek black cars lined up in their reserved spaces. Executives adjusted their ties, briefcases in hand, preparing for another day of high-stakes meetings. Suddenly, a piercing shout shattered the calm. "Don't get in the car." A small figure sprinted across the wet asphalt, his worn sneakers skidding dangerously. The voice belonged to Marcus Hill, a 12-year-old boy no one there had ever taken seriously, the son of Lydia Hill, the invisible cleaning woman who had scrubbed the company offices for 15 years. His words froze every movement. At that exact moment, Victor Dalton, the 53-year-old CEO, reached for the golden handle of his black Mercedes. His security guards moved instantly, hands already raised to restrain the frantic child. But Marcus's eyes, wide and desperate, locked onto Dalton's. "Please, sir," he gasped, clutching the stitch in his side. "Don't get in. Something's wrong." Dalton stared down at him, irritation tightening his jaw. He was late for a meeting that could mean billions. Why was he wasting time on a janitor's kid? Still, there was something in the boy's trembling hands and tear-glossed eyes that unsettled him. "What are you talking about?" he asked coldly. The guards hesitated, waiting for Dalton's command. Marcus swallowed, his voice shaking but firm. "Last night, when my mom was cleaning upstairs, I saw two men in suits in the garage. They were under your car for at least 20 minutes. They had tools. I heard them talking about Thursday." He hesitated, then added, "One of them had a scar shaped like a crescent on his forehead. The other was tall, bald, with a snake tattoo on his neck." Silence swept the lot. Dalton felt a chill slither down his spine. He knew those men. They weren't employees. They were criminals, Scar Valdez and Anthony Snake Kane. Dangerous men he had gone out of his way to avoid. "Ridiculous," scoffed Charles Bennett, the vice president of sales, straightening his tie. "Victor, you're not seriously going to listen to this kid. We've got Japanese investors waiting." But Dalton raised a hand, silencing him. "Graves," he ordered his head of security, "inspect the car." Minutes later, the security chief returned, pale, his hands shaking. "Sir, there's a timed explosive wired to the ignition. Set to blow at 9:15. Gasps tore through the crowd. Bennett stammered, his face drained of color, but Dalton barely heard him. His gaze was fixed on Marcus, the boy who had just saved his life. Dalton knelt, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You just kept me alive. How can I thank you?" The boy didn't hesitate. "Find the people who did this. They'll try again." That single moment changed everything. Lydia arrived breathless, her uniform damp with sweat, dragging Marcus back. "I'm sorry, Mr. Dalton," she stammered. "He doesn't know what he's saying." But Dalton shook his head. "Your son may have just exposed something bigger than any of us." Inside his office, Dalton pressed Marcus for every detail. The boy admitted he'd overheard more. The men mentioned Riverside Heights, a controversial luxury project Dalton had refused to approve because it would destroy low-income neighborhoods, including the one where Lydia's sister lived. And then Marcus said something that made Dalton's blood run cold. "After they left, I saw Mr. Bennett go down to the garage. He greeted them like old friends." Dalton leaned back slowly, rage boiling in his veins. His most trusted executive was conspiring to kill him and seize the company. "Marcus," he said quietly, "you and your mother are not the problem. You are the solution." That night, Marcus guided Dalton through service corridors and hidden stairwells the CEO had never noticed. The boy moved like a ghost, dodging cameras, pointing out blind spots. "I've watched for years while Mom cleaned," he whispered. "When you're invisible, you learn things others ignore." In the server room, Marcus revealed a surprising talent: basic hacking skills his cousin had taught him. Within an hour, they had unearthed emails between Bennett and a corrupt consortium, recordings of phone calls planning Dalton's death, and financial transfers to the two hired killers. The plot was undeniable. The next day, the boardroom was packed with investors. Bennett, smug and confident, announced that new leadership was needed after yesterday's scare. He proposed himself as CEO and unveiled the Riverside Heights project as the company's future. Dalton watched silently from the back, Marcus gripping a tablet connected to the presentation system. "Let's call it what it is," Dalton finally said, striding to the front. "Attempted murder." The room erupted. Bennett forced a laugh. "Victor, you're clearly shaken. Don't embarrass yourself." But his words were cut off when Marcus pressed a key. The screens filled with Bennett's emails, The Dalton problem will be solved Thursday morning. Prepare succession documents. Gasps echoed. Bennett's face flushed purple. This is fake. A hack. Dalton nodded at Marcus, who revealed the second wave of evidence bank transfers to Scar and Snake. Tell me, Charles, Dalton said coldly. Did you really think you could murder me and steal this company in front of the same investors now watching you burn? Federal agents stormed in, cuffs snapping around Bennett's wrists. His protests grew desperate. You don't understand. I built this company as much as you. I deserve it. But no one listened. His empire crumbled in seconds, destroyed not by a rival tycoon, but by the janitor's son he had once ignored. In front of stunned investors, Dalton placed his hand proudly on Marcus's shoulder. This boy saved my life. From today, Marcus Hill will serve as our special security consultant, and his mother, Lydia, will be promoted to night operations supervisor with a raise. Applause thundered through the room. Marcus blushed, Lydia wept, and for the first time, the invisible were seen. Months later, Dalton and Pierce was transformed. Marcus, now 13, trained executives on his total visibility protocol, a strategy built on listening to those society overlooks: janitors, guards, maintenance workers. Lydia became director of internal operations, turning years of invisibility into authority. Investors praised Dalton's vision, unaware it was born out of one child's courage. Meanwhile, in a federal prison, Charles Bennett sat in silence, obsessing over the boy who ruined him. How did a kid destroy me? He muttered endlessly. But the truth was simpler. Bennett destroyed himself by underestimating those he thought beneath him. Back at the company, Marcus concluded one of his presentations with the phrase that had become his motto: invisibility can be a curse or a superpower, it depends on who's paying attention. Dalton stood proudly beside him, knowing that a child he had almost dismissed had taught him the most important lesson of leadership. True power doesn't come from crushing others, but from lifting up those who have always been ignored.